identify yourself.
You're not real. You're not real.
Until you identify yourself, you cannot make this. There we go. Let's go.
Show us your badge.
No.
Show it to us.
No. You cannot make that arrest.
Hey guys, wow. It's 4:03 a.m. in East Nashville, and the only sounds outside are dogs barking, distant sirens, and something that feels like the end of the world. You're still wrapped in that thin fleece blanket, dreaming of tomorrow's coffee when the door flies open with a thunder that doesn't belong to dreams. Flashlights cut through your kitchen like searchlights, boots stomp past the family photos, and voices scream names that don't belong to you. Until one does. This wasn't supposed to happen. ICE agents, flanked by local law enforcement, are executing what they call a targeted enforcement operation. But it doesn't feel surgical. It feels like a storm that doesn't ask permission. Men in armored vests pull people from beds, separate families in front of crying toddlers, and turn every door knock into a trigger. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're watching from a place like Bakersfield or Brownsville or the Bronx, drop your location and local time in the comments. Let's track this story across the country. Summary, inspirational, call to action, and let's go on the journey of today's story together. You remember Jose, the guy who used to bring your mail? He's the first one pulled outside. His crime? A traffic stop from 2011. You hear someone scream in Spanish, something about their children. In a third story unit, a woman is trying to shield her teenage son as agents press her against the window. No warrant is shown, just the silence of authority. And then one agent mutters under his breath, just following orders. The phrase echoes like a curse in the hallway, bouncing off drywall and broken trust. ICE says they're here for criminal aliens. But in this moment, what you see are neighbors, friends, the woman who sews your kids' Halloween costumes. No one warned you Nashville had become a front line. The morning after the raids, Nashville doesn't wake up the same. Coffee shops stay shuttered, playgrounds echo with absence, and classrooms have too many empty chairs. You drive past Trinity Lane and notice the same food truck lot. Only half the vendors showed up today. The other half vanished. Their vans parked, their grills cold. ICE called it Operation Sojourner. Over 6 days, 543 people were arrested across the metro area. The official statement from ICE.gov emphasized prioritized enforcement, claiming the operation targeted violent offenders. But the real story, as always, lived between the press release lines. Local media reported that many of those arrested had no prior record beyond immigration status violations. Some were picked up at job sites, others during routine traffic stops. One man was detained after stepping outside to smoke. You hear the name Public Safety Operation and wonder, who defines safety? According to ICE Field Director John Estrada, quoted on ICE.gov, these operations protect communities. But as a mother you know puts it, what community are they protecting? I don't feel safer. I feel hunted. Meanwhile, on social media, a video goes viral. A father being tackled in front of his 3-year-old at a Shell gas station in Antioch. The caption reads, "Tell me again how this is justice." It garners 2.1 million views in 36 hours. Track immigration data from Syracuse University paints an even starker picture. Of those arrested, 62% had no criminal convictions, not even misdemeanors. Yet ICE paired with local police in neighborhoods dense with immigrants, Laverne, Antioch, Madison, where suspicion often walks hand in hand with skin tone. What makes it all sting more? According to a separate release from WLWT, ICE's data sharing initiative with local utility departments meant addresses were flagged for meter irregularities. Code for Spanish surnames paying cash. The line between surveillance and service is thinning, and Nashville just became a case study. The operation's numbers look good on paper, but numbers don't sob in back seats. They don't beg in broken English, and they don't lose a parent before breakfast. Maria should have been baking. By 4:30 a.m., she's usually rolling dough, prepping guava pastries for the morning crowd at her small East Nashville bakery. Her van smells like cinnamon and espresso, her daughter strapped in the front seat with an old tablet and a half-eaten granola bar. But this morning, the van never moves. As she turns the ignition, headlights flare behind her. Then another set, Before she can even shift to drive, two unmarked SUVs box her in. A man in a vest taps the window. Behind him, a badge, ICE. You reach for her daughter first. That's what Maria tells you later in a call from detention. I thought it was a carjacking. I told them, please, my daughter is scared, but they pulled me out like a criminal. Maria's only violation was overstaying a visa by 8 years. In that time, she paid taxes, ran a business, employed 2 other women, and never missed a parent-teacher conference. But on the ICE roster, she was just one more deportable alien. The arrest wasn't dramatic by movie standards. No chase, no yelling, just quiet, brutal efficiency. Her daughter was left with a neighbor. Thank God she lived on the same block. ICE agents gave her 30 seconds to make the call. Maria's arrest was part of a pattern. According to an internal ICE document shared via the Marshall Project, agents were instructed to prioritize visible individuals with recurring routines. That means bakers, bus drivers, janitors, people whose lives are predictable, reliable, easy to locate. Back at the bakery, the lights never flicker on. Regulars pass by puzzled. A closed due to family emergency sign is taped to the door. Her daughter doesn't return to school for 2 weeks. But here's the kicker. While Maria sat in detention, ICE posted a press release titled Operation Targets Criminal Threats. No mention of bakery owners, no space for mothers, just one more name on a spreadsheet. And in a strange twist, the bakery's Yelp rating goes up because someone, somewhere, thinks this all sounds like fiction. It's not. Facts don't flinch. They don't tremble under flashlight beams or weep in immigration court. They just sit there, cold, clinical, waiting to be read. And if you're paying attention, they tell a story more damning than any viral clip. ICE says 543 people were arrested in a coordinated operation across the greater Nashville area. But here's what they don't broadcast. Track immigration data shows that 62% of those individuals had no criminal record at all. None, not even parking violations. Of those remaining, most were cited for low-level infractions, expired tags, missed court dates for minor offenses, or in one case, unlawful tethering of a dog. The data maps, published through Track, pinpoint the arrests across predominantly immigrant neighborhoods: Antioch, Laverne, Hermitage. These aren't coincidence zones. They're zones of algorithmic focus. ICE agents used a predictive modeling system based on utility usage spikes, bilingual voter guides, and even enrollment in ESL programs. Legal? Barely. Ethical? You tell me. And here's another wrinkle. According to Wired, Palantir Technologies supplied ICE with the software suite used to coordinate raids. The same company that worked with military intelligence now filters coffee shop tips from Instagram hashtags. A Nashville coffee bar that advertised refugee-friendly job listings in Spanish was flagged in a June 26 memo under community hotspots of undocumented labor. Of the 543, only 7 were confirmed gang affiliates. Those 7 names became the face of the entire operation. They showed up in the ICE press release headline, while the 320 mothers, fathers, janitors, delivery drivers, and landscapers remained unnamed, unhuman. Here's the strangest part. One arrest was made during a local soccer tournament at a park in Donaldson. ICE called it a coincidental apprehension, but an NPR investigation uncovered that the agent's daughter played on the opposing team. The timing? Not a coincidence. And what about those who weren't home? Door cams show agents entering properties anyway. ICE claimed exigent circumstances. In one clip shared with Nashville Scene, you see an agent using a child's toy bin to prop open a gate. The facts speak, but in this town it seems no one's listening. You sit on your porch watching the shadows stretch across the street, and you ask yourself the question everyone's asking but no one's answering. Is this really about public safety? Or is it just plain profiling wrapped in legalese? ICE insists these operations are strategic, that each raid is the product of data, intelligence, and necessity. They say they're removing threats, criminals, gang members, drug traffickers, and yet 62% of those detained had no criminal history. That's not just a margin of error, that's a method. From ICE's perspective, the numbers justify the means. Their website brags about reducing threats to American communities with zero tolerance. Field Director John Estrada appeared on Fox News Nashville, claiming these raids target the worst of the worst. But then he hesitated when asked why so many arrests were made at churches and schools. On the flip side, civil rights groups and legal observers say the operation looked a lot like racial profiling. The ACLU of Tennessee issued a statement comparing the strategy to stop and frisk on steroids, except this time, entire communities are being frisked without ever being stopped. Attorneys representing multiple detainees revealed that at least 40 arrests occurred without formal warrants shown, something ICE legally skirts by calling it field verification. You hear arguments online. If they're here illegally, they broke the law. Sure, but so did people who jaywalk or drive with expired insurance, and none of them get dragged out of bed by men in riot gear. Laws exist, but how they're enforced and who gets chosen, that's where the truth hides. Then there's the emotional toll. In a statement to The Guardian, one teacher said, "It felt like we were suddenly in a war zone. Kids were whispering to each other, wondering whose mom would vanish next." This isn't just a policy debate. It's a moral line in the sand. On one side, order. On the other, justice. Can you have both? Depends on who's answering. Depends on who's watching. And more than anything, depends on who's being watched. By Friday, the schools feel like mourning grounds. Cafeterias are quiet. Desks stay empty. Teachers notice backpacks abandoned in cubbies. Lunch is still packed, names still taped to the straps, but no little hands to claim them. It starts with whispers. A third grader at Buena Vista Elementary tells her classmate, "ICE took Miguel's dad." By the time the principal sends an email assuring parents that school is a safe space, the panic has already taken hold. A dozen kids don't show up the next day. By Monday, it's nearly 50. You call your neighbor, a second-grade teacher at Napier Elementary. She tells you what she saw. Parents pacing the parking lot, some crying, some too frozen to even enter the building. They're scared to bring their children, she says, and the kids, they don't know why. At Maplewood High, attendance drops 30% in 1 week. Counselors report an uptick in anxiety, trauma responses, and night terrors. Some students won't talk. Others won't stop. One boy tells his teacher, "They took my uncle. He wasn't even hiding." And still, ICE calls the operation routine. The ICE.gov briefing praises the agency's community stabilization strategy, an ironic title for a campaign that left so many classrooms destabilized. No one calls it what it really is, a disruption bomb. Not just for those taken, but for everyone left behind. In one shocking turn, a local Catholic school reported a mistaken raid attempt. ICE agents entered a parish building near St. Joseph's Prep, thinking it was a residential unit. Nuns intervened. The agents backed off, but not before demanding IDs from 2 janitors in the hallway. Neither man had documents. Both disappeared by morning. Even the buses are quieter now. Fewer pickups, fewer drop-offs. Bus drivers swap ICE sightings via group chat. One route had to be reassigned after the driver broke down sobbing mid-shift. She'd watched one of her regulars get detained at a gas station earlier that week. This isn't collateral damage. It's the design. Fear doesn't just discourage crime, it discourages everything. Joy, routine, education, health. When a kid asks if his mom will be gone like Maria, what do you say? You sit with your thoughts longer than usual now. Not because the news is new, it never is, but because it feels like the rules are changing mid-game. Somewhere between law and morality, between public order and personal ruin, something vital has gone missing. Justice, maybe. And that's where the questions start to crawl in. Not legal questions, but ethical ones. Is enforcing the law always right? Is every arrest justice? Or does justice require something deeper? Context? Compassion? Choice? Take Maria. Her only crime was staying, not hiding, not stealing, not hurting, just staying. She built a life, contributed, paid taxes, raised a child, and in the end, she was dragged out like a fugitive because the system saw her as data, not a person. According to the Independent, ICE guidelines allow discretionary considerations for caregivers and small business owners, but in practice, discretion often dies at the hands of quotas. And then there's you, watching from your porch, your phone, your classroom. Are you complicit in silence? Is it enough to not agree with something that keeps happening? You want to believe that laws protect, that systems serve. But when you see footage of a janitor handcuffed next to his mop bucket while his daughter wails off camera, you start wondering whether neutrality is just cowardice in a suit. The philosopher Hannah Arendt once wrote about the banality of evil. how atrocities are often committed not by monsters, but by ordinary people following procedure. It's a haunting idea that the most dangerous thing isn't hatred, it's indifference. And that's what you hear in the voice of the ICE agent caught on a neighbor's Ring camera saying, "Another one down, let's move." No rage, no glee, just protocol. But people aren't protocols. They're not line items. They're not another one. They're stories and meals left unfinished and dreams halfway folded. And every time the law forgets that, it stops being law, it becomes violence with a badge. So you ask, if this is the American way, what kind of America are we really choosing? There's no knock at your door tonight, but that doesn't mean it won't come tomorrow. And maybe that's the most chilling part, how normal it all seems now. The headlines scroll past like weather updates. ICE conducts raids, hundreds detained, operation a success. We consume it, swipe, move on. But behind each line is a family rearranged, a house now quiet, a child who can't sleep without the hallway light on. You start thinking, what if it was you? What if someone misread a file, misspelled your name, matched your face to a wrong identity? Would anyone pause the machine for you? In a report published by ProPublica, over 300 people were wrongfully detained by ICE over the past 3 years, some U.S. citizens. One, a Navy veteran from Texas, spent weeks in detention before proving his citizenship. "It was like I didn't exist," he said. "They had paperwork. I had a pulse." So maybe the fight isn't about them. It's about all of us, about what kind of society we're building when silence equals approval, when fear governs policy, when justice is selectively distributed like rations in a war zone. You realize now, this isn't just a story to watch. It's a story you're inside of. One you help write every time you choose to speak up, or not. Every time you forward an article, attend a vigil, ask a question, or vote with conscience over comfort. So here's what you can do right now. Share this story with someone who still believes ICE only targets criminals. Support local legal defense funds like the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition. Contact your representatives. Ask what oversight they're demanding. Show up. Say something. Because the next knock could be louder, closer. And when it comes, the only question will be, did you do anything before it arrived? Now take a breath. Let the noise settle. Let the weight of it sink in. You're still here. You still have power, but only if you use it. Now, as we slow down, I want you to imagine Maria's bakery lights flickering on again. The smell of cinnamon returns to the neighborhood. Her daughter, now a little taller, carries a tray of warm bread to the counter. Outside, the same van waits, its keys hanging from the hook by the door. A tiny act of restoration. One that started not with a law, but with a choice. Let this moment soften your pulse. You've listened, watched, felt something real. And maybe you're wondering, what now? What does one voice matter? What does one vote change? What does one story do? Here's the answer. Everything. Because when enough people refuse to look away, refuse to normalize the pain, refuse to stay silent, that's when systems shift. That's when shadows lose their grip. That's when policies bend toward people, not away from them. So rest tonight, but not too deeply. Keep the light on. Keep the questions close. Speak someone's name who's been forgotten. And remember, history is not made by those who sit it out. It's made by those who show up.